Hello and welcome to Mile High Reefers. I'm Scott Anderson, and today we're going to take a look at all the equipment I use to keep this 210-gallon tank going. So starting at the top of the tank are the Giesman Tesla LEDs, and they've worked pretty well for me. Like I said in the initial review, the biggest problem I have with these lights is the controllability of them. And out of the box, the controllability is just really bad. And I refer to my full review on these lights for more information if you're interested. I'm also running a 120 watt metal halide, and that's just to add some lighting to the back. Just because I'm got a temporary setup right now, I'm not able to lift these lights high enough to get a good beam spread to completely cover the tank. When I do the full build, I will raise that up and hopefully that'll be enough lighting. If it's not, I've got some ideas for some other supplemental LEDs. For flow within the tank, I have a JBJ Wavemaker WP40 on the left, and that pump has been stellar. This thing's been in the tank for over a year and it has just worked flawless. The only problem it's ever had has been when I've taken it apart to clean it and I put it together wrong, and of course that's operator error. Can't blame the pump for that. And on the right is a JBJ pump, which is on a random on-off cycle by an old school Wavemaker pump. And someday I would like to upgrade that to another one of the JBJs and get the dual controller model. But for now, I've got the current and the flow I need, so it's all working pretty well. Underneath the tank, there isn't a whole lot going on. I still have my 4 drain lines, which I really like. This adds a lot of safety and redundancy to this tank. The last thing I need is for this thing to overflow, and with this setup, it would be really difficult to overflow this tank. And then on the bottom, I've got my ballast for my metal halide and some other electronics, and remember, this is all just temporarily mocked up until I do the built-in. And when I do the built-in, I'm really thinking this is where the quarantine tank's gonna go. And here's what sets my system apart. It's the basement sump room. And as you can see, I've got all 3 frag tanks set up. They're got water running in them. They're not set up to frag yet, but they do have some inexpensive lighting above them for the time being. I'm not sure if that's going to be the long-term solution, but it is something I went ahead and screwed up on there before I put water in the tank. Starting with the basics, the water comes down from the tank and follows this 2-inch line down all the way down to the sump. And then the sump is really simple. It's just a big sheep trough. I bought this at my local farm store years ago, and it's been pretty much flawless. I have taken all the Chaeto, live rock, everything out of there, and I do have a little experiment going where I've got a clump of Xenia growing under 6500K bulbs just to kind of see what's going to happen. And then the water flows out there to my Pan World pump, and this thing has been just flawless. If you saw all the problems I had with the reflow pump, this thing has just been completely bulletproof. Then the water flows up the pipe and it splits off. I've got 2 valves running to the protein skimmers and 1 valve running up to the frag tank, and then another hose running up to feed the display upstairs. My main method of nutrient transport is heavy skimming, biopellets, and of course carbon and GFO. So those 3 things working in conjunction are the way I'm trying to keep the nutrients out of my tank. And by that I mean nitrates and phosphates. So to begin with, the skimmers are doing a great job. I've got an EV120 on the right and an EV180 on the left. I'm running dual skimmers, and for me this is working out really well. If you would do the specs, you might think that this probably isn't enough skimming for a system that's overall volume is pushing 450 gallons. That's frag tank, sump, 210 gallon display. It's a lot of water, and yet these skimmers are really good at what they do. I'm able to basically overdrive these skimmers by running them off the main return pump. I'm able to run the max flow through, and the way I'm tuning these skimmers is by adjusting flow. So full air going in, full drain going out, and I adjust the flow going in, and that allows these skimmers to run at their maximum possible capacity, which is really cool. And if you look at how dirty and nasty these are, that's a testament to how well this is working. I cleaned these skimmers 6 days ago, so that is a really nasty skimmer. And you might say, well, there's not a lot in that collection cup. Well, that's the second dumping of this collection cup. So I'm really impressed by these AquaSea EV180 and 120 skimmers. The only downside to them is you have to have a really big pump to run them, and they're not cheap skimmers to go buy. The other advantage with dual skimmers I'm finding is it seems like 20% of the time I'm having an issue with one of the skimmers, it's out of adjustment or who knows what, and by having two skimmers, usually one of them's working really well when the other one's struggling. So I'm always getting really good skimming out of one of them. Most of the time both are working really well, but it gives a lot of redundancy having two skimmers. So I'm trying to DIY biopellet reactor, and what this is my old calc stirrer remodified for biopellets. And there's a few things I don't really like on it, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time until I dial in, and I'll probably do a video fully on the biopellet portion of this. But so far so good. I'm feeding it with a Mag 5, and then if you'll look, I've got a Mag 5 set to recirc, so I can control the amount of water running in, and I can control the amount of circulation within the tank. And so far it's working well. I've just got some minor issues I want to sort out. I'm still running the bulk Reef supply GFO and carbon reactor, and it is way too small for this tank, but for the time being it's keeping my parameters where I need to be. I don't have any detectable phosphates, and I'm not having any yellowing of the water or smell issues, so the carbon's still able to keep up for the time being. But eventually I will upgrade. You will notice it's really dirty. I'm getting close to the point where I need to tear this thing apart and soak it in vinegar and get it all cleaned up again. It's been about 6 months, and I'm finding with these you gotta do that about every 6 months. The Core Life calcium reactor is still doing a pretty good job. It's probably a little small for the tank I'm doing, but it's still pretty much holding my parameters to the same level as my old 90 gallon, and that's probably because I have the same amount of livestock as the 90 gallon had, so it's probably pretty close to the same calcium use still. But eventually I probably will have to go bigger and badder, but for the time being it's working out. I really feel one of the keys to my success has been my water change station, and the way it works is I've got my bulk Reef supply RODI unit up on the shelf, and that feeds water to the top tank. That top tank is always full of fresh RODY water because I got a float switch in there that maintains that water level. So as soon as I drain some out, float switch kicks on, more RODI water is created. So I've always got loads of water. And for simplicity's sakes, it's just a valve on the bottom of that tank. I run a hose to it so I can hose fresh water over to the sump when I need to add water to the sump, and I take the hose off and pull the cap off the bottom tank when I need to add water to the bottom tank to mix up salt water. The bottom tank is set up with a pump in it so I can continuously mix the salt in the salt water so that when I'm ready to use that salt water it's thoroughly mixed. And to get the water out, there's a valve below it that a pipe hooks up to, and I can just gravity feed it to the sump or bucket or whatever I need to. And it's all gravity fed, which makes it really easy. Downside is, with this big of a system, I may end up needing a bigger saltwater tank. 30 gallons for 450 gallons may not be enough water on hand. But for now, it's really working well. There we go. There's the overview of the system. That's what keeps my 210 gallon tank running. And I'm really happy with it. I like the way it's all working out. Definitely more upgrades to come. Biggest upgrade that'll be coming eventually will be the frag tanks. Biggest thing I need to do to get these guys up and running, they've already got water going through them, is I need a dehumidifier. Right now, the way things are, I've got too much humidity in the room. I literally have water raining off the pipes when I don't have those lids on there. So that's to come. Financing is the major limiting factor there, but it is going to happen eventually. So thanks for watching Mile High Reefers. I'm always trying to improve my system, and I try to keep everybody up to date as I do it. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.